So we've already greeted you, Rhonda, a few of us.
Yes.
Rhona Atwater, who, well, I first met as a camper at the door many, many years ago. And then she went to a school for music education, is actually a clarinet player. And then has developed over the years, grew up in the Salvation Army, what was the Germantown Avenue Corps in Philadelphia, which became the Kroc Center in Philadelphia. For a while, she was actually the Kroc music director. She was the regional music director for how many years for Philadelphia?
Like 15 or something like that.
15 years. So we had 10 corps in Philadelphia, all kinds of different corps. And Rhonda did a really good job, especially this time of year. She used to visit, like you do, Peter, all the vacation Bible schools and everything else after school programs. And we'd get new kids for the fall from those music schools. But as most of you know in the room, Rhonda came 2 years ago as our guest for gospel choir. There's the picture to prove it. And we asked her to give some time. We did intend, I want to say for those of you who did sign up for gospel choir, we had hoped to have that. We just had some issues with getting a live person here to teach that. So this is our substitute for this. So we're going to give you the floor, and it looks like you're well prepared as always. So let's greet Rhonda. Can we do that?
Thanks, everybody. It's so good. I'm so happy we're doing this. It's definitely my pleasure. I miss being there. Because I'm sharing my screen, for some reason I can't see any of you, but when I'm done, I'm hoping to see your faces again. I think I know a lot of you, but welcome to another masterclass. I know you've been doing this for a week and a half so far. This is one on leading a gospel choir. And for those of you who don't know me from 2 years ago, I'm Rhona Atwater. I'm from Philadelphia, like Harold said, which is where I currently live with my husband, Reese, and my son Kai, usually 1 or 2 foster children that we'll have at any particular time, and my dog Dash, who's the slowest dog you've ever met, but his name is Dash. A little bit about me: I do have a great love for being part of gospel choirs, either as a director or as a singer, but especially as a singer, because it helps me to know how I need to lead as a director. So I sang and performed in gospel choirs throughout high school and college, where I was a music education major, which you know. I've directed gospel choirs at my corps and in the greater Philadelphia area for several years. So I feel like I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. I've seen what draws a group together and also what draws them apart. And that's why, while we talk today about teaching and rehearsal practices, a lot of what we'll also discuss has to do with leadership outside of the actual rehearsal room. So just to share with you real quick, one of my most formative memories is living in a dorm at college, watching my best friend, who was my roommate, pledge with a Black sorority, which many of you know is an ordeal. I remember her wanting so badly to be part of this group, this sisterhood. She wanted to belong to something so intensely that she broke many of her own personal boundaries to achieve it. And she would ask me occasionally about pledging myself, and I never felt the need to because of Thursday nights. So Thursday nights were when our gospel choir met. It was where I got everything that I needed: musical, spiritual, community, comedic relief, and even figuring out where and how a type of music that was literally a part of me fit into this larger construct of music at a predominantly white university. So it was where I belonged. And it was more than about the music. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today too. We're also going to know some things that are good to consider if you're leading any type of choir, gospel or otherwise. So, if you've considered some of these points before, I hope they'll be good reminders for you. So we're going to start today with objectives, which, everything that we do as leaders will point back to what your objective is. So we can ask ourselves questions such as, am I leading for a spiritual or a personal spiritual reason? Is it because I've been asked or expected to lead? Is it because I've identified certain needs in my corps, in my division, or in individuals that I've talked to? We can also ask ourselves, what are my musical goals? What are my spiritual goals? I recommend writing down the answers to these questions and returning to them and modifying them pretty regularly. So I do have a quick video here. It's about finding your why. I just feel like everything ties back into this.
How do I know? A lot of people, when they think of the phrase, how do I know, they always want to put the what behind it. How do I know what I'm supposed to do? The question that you really should ask is, how do I know why I'm here? Because when you know your why, your what becomes more clear and more impactful. If you know, like for instance, people know that I do comedy, but that's what I do. My why is to inspire people to walk in purpose. So I can do comedy, I can write books, I can be in a movie, because all of it is motivated by my why. In fact, I have a new web series out called Michael Jr. Break Time. We probably just did the 6th episode. It's on YouTube. So every single Wednesday at 3 o'clock, we drop a new episode on YouTube of Michael Jr. Break Time. What it is it's me. I travel around the country and I do stand-up comedy, in case you didn't know. And in the middle of my comedy set sometime, I'll stop and just talk to my audience. And we've been filming this, and it's pretty cool. So we're in Winston-Salem. I'm going to show you a clip from Winston-Salem. And I'm just talking to this guy in the audience, and he tells me that he's a musical instructor at a school. So I was like, all right, you're a musical instructor. Can you sing? Let me hear you sing a song. So this is what happened at the last episode of Michael Jr.'s Break Time. Check it. So you're a musical director. Cool.
Yes, sir.
All right, so let me get a couple bars of like Amazing Grace. Can you do the first part of that? Go ahead.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
Wow. That bro could sing. You know what I'm saying? All right. Now, what you give me the version is if your uncle just got out of jail, you got shot in the back when you was a kid. I'm just saying, let me see the hood version real quick, if you know which version I'm talking about. Just see if that exists. Let me see what you got.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Lost, but now, right now I'm found, was blind, but now I see.
Okay. Here's what I want you to catch. The first time I asked him to sing, he knew what he was doing. The second time, he knew why he was doing it. When you know your why, your what becomes more impactful because you're walking towards or in your purpose.
Okay, so it's kind of weird not being there with you and just kind of experiencing this with you, but we're going to come back to that. Because I think everything is just really connected to your objective as leaders. So the next thing we want to touch on is research. Don't let this word scare you. It's not like research that you do for school. It's just about keeping an open mind and being a lifelong learner. Just like it's important to know your family history, your church history, your ethnic history, so that they can guide you in your future. As a gospel choir leader, just be aware. Seek out knowledge along the way. So I recommend that you check out, history of gospel choirs in America and beyond, learn about how styles vary between different regions. I especially recommend this documentary. I don't know if any of you have seen it, called The Black Church. It's based on a book by Henry Louis Gates, but I recommend the documentary over the book because you get to see the faces and hear the music and really understand the importance of story and song throughout the history of Black people in America. So check that out if you get a chance. Another thing is, I don't know if you all have this in the Central Territory, but in the East, we have a seminar weekend every 2 years called Empowerment, where Salvation Army officers and soldiers of color and anyone else really gathers for worship, learning, and building. So my husband and I attended a few years ago, and we thought it was great. But at one particular meeting, the congregational song was Precious Lord, right? Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, let me stand. I am tired, I am weak, I am worn, right? And I was so moved because we don't get to sing songs like that in our regular core worship meetings. And to me, as I looked around and I saw people singing this song that carried so much weight and history, I felt like I witnessed a breakthrough. It was like people were just waiting and wanting to sing this song again. And finally, they were able to together, uninhibited. And I could sense this because I know a little bit about the history of music and about what it means for people. So jumping forward a little bit, let's think a bit about repertoire. So selections. Think about, for you as an individual, what initially draws you to a piece of music? So as leaders, we want to give our singers, our group, that same space to be drawn to the music in whichever ways they will. I call this the hook and draw. So is the hook for one person the melody or the rhythm? And is the hook for another person the lyrics or the original performance of a song? Is it the cultural, personal, historic, or spiritual ties? Or is it just that the music is something new and fresh and unfamiliar? So, think about that. Give people kind of the space to kind of explore in your group. And if it's your goal to have your groups specialize in a certain style, you want to be consistent with that, that's fine. If you rather use a variety of styles in your selections, that's fine too. But this decision is going to ultimately be connected with your objective, right? With your why. So because I have worked with a lot of teenagers, part of my personal why is to educate, to let them know what else exists aside from what they're used to singing. So I like to include a nice mix. Songs that, from songs that incorporate African languages to a cappella spirituals with, just the hand drum, old school quartet and quintet style gospel, which is heavy on call and response, old school gospel with like heavy rhythm and blues vibes, big state mass choir songs with indie folk flavor, hip hop flavor. And I'm finding that today, and maybe you all are finding this too, but today there are many more songs written for solo voice with less focus on a choir, which I feel leads us to be creative in how we can further feature the choir. You can even compose songs for your choir. So, if you have a musician who can play by ear, this does not have to be like a huge, big, impossible undertaking. With, an energetic drum rhythm, a catchy response phrase, a basic understanding of 3-part harmony, go for it. You can even experiment with and improvise songs right in rehearsals. Will they be perfect? No, but your choir will own them and you will have some ideas to build on. I am not a composer and I have definitely done this in rehearsal, and it has been really, really good. So just as a side note, I always like to include Lift Every Voice and Sing, the Black National Anthem, in my repertoire each season, not necessarily to be performed, but definitely to be touched on at some part in the rehearsal. There are like many great arrangements of it. But if you do get a chance, check out a rendition by a group called Committed, as well as Kirk Franklin's most recent rendition. He did one, maybe some of you are already familiar with that. So check those out. But an important question to ask is, how will your selections be used? Will they be used primarily for worship leading on Sunday morning? Will you be traveling around your region or division, reaching a variety of congregations? Will your group be singing at summer camps for children or primarily at conferences, retreats, special events? So for instance, Israel Houghton's Alpha and Omega, right, which we did 2 years ago, would be more suited probably for a Sunday morning or Wednesday night prayer rather than like a morning divisional music camp gathering. And most of Ty Tribbett's music, and y'all know, those of you, right, y'all know I'm a huge fan of his music, might be used on like a Friday night with youth, although he does have a wide variety of music. But the point is that our song selections will be based on how they will be used within and outside of the rehearsal rooms. Okay. Another thing to consider is resources. So who are your singers and what are their ability levels? There were many seasons when I was directing where Ty Tribbett and Richard Smallwood would have totally rounded out our repertoire. But because of the singers and abilities I had in those particular seasons, I would have overwhelmed the group. So I had to focus on songs with unison sections and more straightforward harmonies. Now, there were seasons where we could really rock out and enjoy that music. So, you know, there's a balance. And also, don't be afraid to simplify or to juice up simple sections as you see fit. You don't have to sing everything as written or as recorded. Another thing to consider is, who are your musicians? What are their ability levels? What musical instruments do you have available to you? Your rehearsal frequency and time. How often does your group meet and for how long? All of these things are going to determine which songs you choose to include. So I'm going to play another short video clip. This is a clip of composer, arranger Trey McLaughlin rehearsing with his group. Here's what I want you to think about as it plays. Which element of this song or rehearsal might hook and draw your singers? Then how might this selection be used in the gathering? And I'm sorry.
Samson, chosen by the living God, to be his.
So we're gonna start in unison. There was one. Better is a one day in your courts. Better is a one day in your house. Better is a one day in your courts than thousands elsewhere. And drop. Better is a one day in your courts. Better is a one day in your house. Better is a one day in your courts than thousands elsewhere. All right, so nice and easy. Better is a one day in your courts. Better is a one day in your house. Better is a one day in your courts than thousands elsewhere. Better is a one day in your courts. Better is a one day in your house. Better is a one day in your courts than thousands elsewhere. All right, so everybody on soprano. Better is one day. Better is one day. Better is one day. Do it again. Better is one day. Better is one day. Better is one There is one day, one day, one day. Do that again. That was not. There is one day, one day, one day. Better is one day in your courts. Better is one day in your house. Better is one day in your courts than thousands elsewhere. Better is one day in your courts. Better is one day in your house. Better is one day in your courts than thousands elsewhere. Thanks. Better is one day. 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 Better is one day.
Okay. So maybe you got a chance to think about those questions, right? So which elements of this song might hook and draw your singers, or this rehearsal technique? Maybe it's that the song lyrics are familiar words of scripture. Maybe it's the repetitiveness of it. Maybe it's that there's an interesting mix of parts, or that the choir gets to sing each part. Maybe because there's an opportunity for the choir to kind of ad lib all together. And then how might the selection be used in a gathering? It seems clear enough for congregants to join in. It feels like a call for people to worship, and could be a warm up to like their more complex songs. So considering all these things when you're choosing music. So preparation, we're kind of making our way through. So preparation. So since gospel music comes out of an oral tradition, start there before delving into sheet music. That's my recommendation. I believe that many of the best songs have not been written down. So take time to sit and peruse. So back in the day, I'm 40 now. I just turned 40. I'm still coming to terms with it. But I used to spend hours in a music store just listening to samples, right? Just song after song after song. Today, you can open your device and just have at it. However you do so, just expose yourself to ideas and inspirations instead of always relying on what you've done before or sang in the past. And because so much has not been written down, listening may be our primary tool for learning, memorizing, and being able to project the voice parts. So singing should be part of your listening process for sure. This means being able to sing in the style we hope to get from our singers. Doesn't have to be perfect, right? But as leaders, we are somewhat of a reflection of the sound and energy of our group. So let's talk about providing recordings for practice. Maybe you don't want your singers to come in cold, right? Maybe you want them to already have heard the music that you're going to rehearse. Be careful with this though, because if you want to do something different than what's on a popular recording, it may be difficult to get singers to deviate from what they've heard and sung many times already. So just be careful with that. You can opt to either record parts yourself. You can record a small group singing together. Actually, here's a teaching clip I recorded last year for CMI when the pandemic didn't allow us to meet together. This is, take a look. I'm not going to play the whole thing. It's a small clip.
Hello, Altos.
if you will be singing the alto part for this song, Bless the Lord, you are in the right place. This recording is for you. We're going to spend a few minutes now walking and talking and singing through your pitches for this song. So the first thing you need to know is that this song is in 3 parts. The first part says, bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me. Bless his holy name. You're going to sing that 2 times through. The second section says, he has done great things. He has done great things. He has done great things. Bless his holy name. So far, so good. And then our third section is just some repetitive hallelujahs and Lord, you're worthy and can't stop praising. So we really want to rock out in that third section. So let's go back to the first section, which starts at 46 seconds in. So you know exactly when to come in. Bless the Lord. That is the soprano pitch. And you are going to be just under that. Bless the Lord, oh my soul. Notice how bless the Lord is here. Oh, my soul is a little bit under. All right. And then you're going, and all that is within me. So let's take those 3 lines. All right. So bless the Lord, oh my soul, and all that is within me. Right? In me are the same pitches as bless his. Right? You hear that? Within me, bless his, right? It kind of rhymes, right? It's the same pitches, okay? So make sure you sing bless his the same way. That's going to set you up for the last of it, all right? So, and all that is within me, bless his holy name. All right. Oh, you're going to make it a little bit bouncy, not too heavy. Holy name. All right. No breath in the middle of holy. You want to keep that together. And you can take a breath before name if you need to. And then hold that name out for 1, 2, 3, 4 beats and then cut off. All right. So that's your first section. Your second section says, he has done great things. If you know this, it pretty much follows the tune that you know. All right. The second one is a little bit higher. He has done great things. Third one's a little bit higher. He has done great things. Guess what? Bless his holy name is exactly how it was in the first section. Bless his holy. I ran out of breath there. You want to set yourself up so you can make it all the way through. Let's try that again. Bless his holy name.
All right. So
all right.
That's just an example because, we couldn't meet together last year and, I recorded something for you all to practice. You don't have to necessarily make teaching recordings, but just kind of recording an audio recording of yourself or a group can really go a long way in preparing your singers for an actual rehearsal, especially if you have limited time together. So finally, as far as preparation, and this is, we all know this, but pray. Pray the scriptures that are present in the song lyrics, pray the actual song lyrics, in your quiet times, and then also pray for your group, your rehearsal, and for yourself as the leader. I hope I'm not going too fast. I can't see your faces and kind of get that energy from you. So teaching and rehearsing. So basically how you teach the music is connected to your primary why. It's connected to why you are leading. So is your objective based mostly on enjoyment of the music, education, like you want your singers to learn, community and fellowship, exposure, service, worship? So when using rote and repetition to teach, consider using visual and oral maps, kind of like how I did in that video that we just watched, how, the words were on the page, they were in sections. I kind of explained at the beginning where we're going. So even though singers are not looking at a piece of sheet music, they kind of can imagine and picture and kind of feel where to go. Many of the groups that I've worked with have been music readers. And so I have provided sheet music to support the learning process. But if sheet music for your group is a barrier to achieving a certain style, go ahead and ditch it. Gospel music comes out in an oral tradition, and many of its elements are best felt and experienced rather than read. So let's talk about form. I know am I moving too fast? I don't know. I can't see you. Let's talk about form. So most gospel choir songs, as many of you know, are based on 3 or 4 part harmony. It's not unusual for women to join the tenor voice part. Usually sopranos and altos will carry the main melody while the other voice parts provide the harmony. But occasionally the tenors will sing melody, and I usually use those opportunities to let them shine. And as far as musical form, there are plenty of variations. Many arrangements will progress this way, starting with a solo or a choir singing the verse, moving to the chorus, moving back to the solo or the choir verse, moving to the chorus a couple times, and then moving on to the vamp. And the vamp might include the adding on of voice parts or chord inversions. So back in 2019, it was ages ago, right? 2 years ago. I feel like a favorite of our CMI gospel choir was an arrangement of the traditional spiritual, I Open My Mouth to the Lord. You can see it pictured there. Transcribed and arranged by Raymond Wise. And it takes a basic couple of lines, right? It says, I open my mouth to the Lord and I won't turn back. Y'all remember this. I will go, I shall go to see what the end is going to be. And what it does is it plays with the shaping and coloring and layering of melody and rhythm, and it results in sort of a fugal effect. So that's one example of just kind of an arrangement that doesn't, stick to that standard verse, chorus, vamp. Another of my favorites is Andre Crouch's God is on Our Side. And the lyrics are here, you can see it. There are 3 back-to-back verses straight through. So the point being, while you do have your standard form, there are many variations, and I just encourage you to, use songs that are different especially in form. All right, directing. Go back, there we go. All right, okay. So like with, classical music, there really is no standard way to direct a gospel choir, right? You all know this. So because of this, there are many styles. We are not just directing music notes. We are directing depth of sound, movement, feeling, and spirit. Excuse me. So basically, we do what we have to do to get our group to sound the way we want them to sound, bottom line, right? So use whatever movements and facial expressions that will cause your singers to respond to dynamics and syncopation, diction, and feeling. If it's a big sounding song, go big. If it's more precise and quiet, make sure you are reflecting that. But most of the time, your directing is for the choir, right? But as we know with gospel choirs, sometimes your directing is for the congregation too, as you lead the choir. So just remembering that our bodies are an instrument, just like their voices. So we can use it to worship even as we are directing the choir. And as far as directing goes, I think it's easiest to talk about what not to do. So here are 3 don'ts. 3 don'ts. For, not to be negative, but 3 don'ts. First, if for a particular reason you are conducting the choir, right, the choir, and not the congregation behind you, then don't conduct the congregation. There are several well-known symbols that we use as gospel choir leaders, from the top, repeat, coda, ending, and these are fine to be visible to everyone, but they really shouldn't be for show because they end up becoming a distraction. Second don't. Don't conduct the choir if you don't need to. Some leaders need to accompany instead of conduct. Even if not, use certain opportunities to sing with your group. And then third, don't sing with the group while you're conducting, especially if the choir is harmonizing. I think the reason for that is self-explanatory. Okay. All right. So choir culture, what does this mean? Choir culture, it says here, building confidence, connection, and a high standard. So this is important because how our singers feel, and you all can attest to this being, having sung in gospel choirs, how our singers feel can dictate how they respond and how they perform. What I've seen is that the more individuals feel ownership, like they're really a part of this group and that they really own this group, meaning, this is not just something I'm participating in, but rather this is my group, my choir, our music, then the more confidence and connection will be achieved. So how do we achieve this, right? How do we get to a point where like our group really feel like this is ours, How do we get them to achieve ownership? One way is to allow space for individual expression within the group. So I believe we did this a few years ago when I was there with you at CMI. Something I like to do is pass a few lines around the room during rehearsal, either as solos or in twos or threes. Just passing it along, right? One person sings it, two people sing it together, three people sing it together. I think that musically, it allows you as the leader to hear different color variations and to really hear your singers, voices. But personally for them, I believe it builds confidence and trust. It helps singers feel that they are in a safe space. I'm not going to play this video for time, but for inspiration, check out Donnie McClurkin's, it's an oldie, right? Donnie McClurkin's Great Is Your Mercy. This is one that I've used many times to turn a simple two-part chorus, like you see here, into powerful personal testimonies, just by passing these two parts around the room and allowing people to do with them what they want. So check that out if you all get a chance. Something else I like to do as far as ownership and individual expression is to use an individual's natural sounds or movements as inspiration for the group. So for instance, if we're singing in rehearsal and everybody's really into it and a certain soprano spontaneously says, woo! Sorry if I hurt your ears. I don't know how loud I am with you. On a certain part, I may take that and I may make it a part of what we're doing and incorporate the whole soprano section or even the whole group. Another way to build ownership is to nurture healthy competition between voice parts. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Maybe you've seen some of these memes. Altos. I've seen camaraderie between voice parts really go a long way in building connection with the choir. We've seen many of these floating around. Okay. All right, let's talk about selecting soloists. This again points back to your objective for the group, right? So you can choose to have a handful of soloists that you can call on throughout the season, who you know will come through and who will sound fantastic the first time around every time, right? That's fine. Or, as I tend to do, you can provide equal opportunity for anyone who might want to shine. This option will require a little more work on your part, the leader, in terms of matching singers' ability levels and vocal colors with the difficulty of the music. So, it might also require you to make time and space outside of rehearsals to give some extra training. But that, will be up to you. Something else to think about. Not all soloists have to sing, right? You can have soloists who rap. You can have soloists who do spoken word. You can have soloists who just lead by reciting. Donald Lawrence, Kirk Franklin, Ty Tribbett, all lead by speaking, right? And they are very effective leaders. So that's something else to consider. Also, not every soloist has to, or this is important, not every soloist has to perform outside of rehearsal. So I like to allow space for individuals to share rehearsal only solos or testimonies because, especially as it relates to a concept or a focus that we have in choir or a set of lyrics. I just feel like this is another way to kind of build connection within the group. And I think we did this a couple years ago when I was there. We opened up space for people to share within rehearsal. Okay. Worship leading. I think we have 2 more to go. Worship leading. So regardless of what happens before or during rehearsals, our groups will eventually share the gospel, right? The good news. That's what we're doing. So how can we lead people to be aware of the presence of God? Okay. First things first, diligence and excellence. So just because there's a lot of freedom and spontaneity in gospel music doesn't mean you can wing it with your preparation and intentions, right? I've seen it happen. We're just going to let the Spirit move. We're just gonna our God is excellent and creative, and He calls us to be that way. And so we need to be prepared. We need to have firm intentions. We need to put the work in so that the Spirit has fertile ground to come in and move in the midst of your rehearsals and your worship leading. Then remember, it all starts in rehearsals and even before rehearsals. So set a tone of worship, both in your own heart and in your rehearsal space, right? It doesn't have to be quiet worship. It can be exuberant, but you should know, and your singers should know, that when they walk into your rehearsal space, they've stepped foot on holy ground. Maybe the musicians are jamming and recorded music is playing as singers enter. Maybe you want to incorporate prayer and scripture into rehearsal time, right? There are plenty of ways that we can do this, but just keep in mind, it may take a while to set this expectation, especially if you're working with kids who, run in and do flips or whatever they do. It may take a while to set this expectation, but I encourage you not to give up on it. Another thing you can do is collaborate with other worship expressions and worship leaders, such as the praise team. I love pairing with the praise team and doing something together. A dancer or dance team, call to worship speaker, right? Any opportunity that you can get a gospel choir to partner up and pair with another form of worship is good, especially if the people that you are leading in worship may not be used to a certain type of music. It's just a way to kind of tie everything together. Okay, so to end, conclusion, in preparation for this, I reached out to some gospel choir singers that I work with, and I asked them what they liked about gospel choir. So here are some of their responses. I'm not going to read them, but I don't know if you have any questions. I feel like I went kind of fast.
We're reading the quotes.
Okay.
Any questions, folks? Rhona, your preparation, as always, was fantastic. You covered so much ground. And thank you.
Well, I need to see your faces. I'm going to stop sharing so I can.
Slides so you can see us, and you can.
Okay,
see...
there you are, everybody.
We can move the camera a little bit so you can take a look.
Yes.
There was a question on the chat. Do you want to read it, John? It's a little small for me. Okay.
I do see it. Should I read it or?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It says, from Javier, it says, I'm a fan of gospel music. It's where the freedom to worship feels a lot. Currently, I lead a choir with songs with the more traditional or somewhat contemporary style, and soon I want to implement a gospel style. The fear is for the members who perhaps have a more traditional preference, and I feel that it will be a bit difficult to adapt them to new styles and make them feel with the freedom to worship without shyness. What could you advise to be able to implement gospel style songs in a choir where historically it has been a bit traditional? and does not seem like an aggressive change. I guess would recommend using, there are many like praise and worship songs that I use as kind of crossovers. And I do find that today there is a bit more crossover, right, between what we consider, praise and worship music and gospel music. I see these songs performed just kind of alternately. And so I would use songs like that are not particularly, labeled like gospel songs, but maybe can be used to kind of ease into more of their style. Does that work? And I can also maybe like think more about it and send you some other ideas.
I got a question for you, Rhonda.
Yeah.
You talk about like being culturally like sensitive about, like groups doing gospel music, we don't want to verge into like appropriation or anything like that.
Right.
We want to do authentic without being offensive.
Yeah. So I think from what I've seen, when groups try to force certain elements of gospel singing, it does come off as insincere. So like if a group really does not feel it in their heart to move, right? We're not going to make them move. Well, at least I don't like to make people, because then it just makes them more uncomfortable and it doesn't come off as sincere. And I've been in groups, where it wasn't natural. But the leader's like, this is what we're going to do. And it does come off as a little bit insensitive. It comes off as it's not coming from the heart, right? We're just trying to do this. Yeah. Yeah, I just think, even if, the selection is not done the way it is, in a particular way with a particular performer or rendition, I think that if the singers are comfortable with the way that they're singing it, I think that will be just better received just all around. Does that make sense? I don't know. You guys bored?
We're here. Yeah.
You're good?
Is the question in the back? Oh, he's fixing his hair.
I'm scared.
No, you can ask a question. And you know Rhonda, so it's great. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Hey, Rhonda.
Hey.
I was gonna ask you, since you've been doing gospel almost your whole life, I was gonna ask you who influenced you, because you've seen different styles. So who influenced you and why?
Who, people that I know, or artists?
Anybody?
Anybody?
Oh, gospel choirs,
Okay. Yeah. I'm feeling I told you I'm still trying to come to terms with my new age here, but I kind of grew up listening to a lot of the big state, mass choirs that influenced my own philosophy of just inclusivity. You don't have to be a professional or anything to sing with me. Just everybody, will make room for you. So definitely state mass choirs. And then I already told you I will follow Ty Tribbett wherever he goes. I've heard him in concert a few times. I just think his music is ridiculous in a good way. And right now, Jonathan McReynolds, right, is a big, y'all know him, right? Yes. His just lyrically, it's poetry. So if y'all don't know him, check him out. And then of course, the master Richard Smallwood has always been an inspiration to me. So.
Hey Rhonda, it's Marissa.
Marissa, hey sis.
Hey. So when you're introducing like gospel music to like a traditional choir, and you want to add musicians to it, when would be like the most appropriate time to do that? Like when they can actually handle it? Like how do you know when to add musicians into the mix?
From the beginning, I think, because you definitely want, you don't want the musicians to be just something that you've added, like extra, right? They are part of the group. The choir will, and their voices will play off of the flavor and the style that the musicians are giving, and vice versa. So I would just say right from the beginning, even if you just have to start with a couple songs before you do all of your selections, just right from the beginning. I mean, we know sometimes the musicians will give us a concert, right? In rehearsal, and sometimes, I just think that they're such an important part of the group, and yeah.
Anybody else have a question? We have this expression with the choirs that your best singer is your accompanist. So, right? So the band needs to be absolutely part of the choir.
Absolutely.
Anybody else have any questions? Thoughts? This is a little tough after lunch, Rhonda, I gotta tell you.
I know the deal.
Well, like you had choir right after lunch, right? It's hard.
I know the deal, I know.
Yeah. Do you have anything else you'd like to share with us? Anything else you'd like to share to close, or?
I don't be scared. I would just say, like, go for it. That's the only way, you're going to become comfortable with it. Just, go for it. Start simple if you need to. Start with, some unison 2-part stuff, and then just go from there. I don't want you all to have just kind of a spirit of fear, especially if you are in the midst of, a place where gospel music is not done. Just, go for it. And I think you'll be all right.
That's been a common theme all week, actually.
Has it?
Thank you for that. It's
Yeah.
kind of reinforces what we've been talking about. Any other questions, anybody? Rhonda, we thank you so much. We're going to put our hands together. It's the best we can do.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
I do have one more question.
Oh, we got another question. Hang on. We got another question.
Uh-oh.
Will you be teaching gospel choir next year? Is it in the making?
You gotta talk to Dr. Bergmeyer. I don't know. Yeah, it was definitely a really great experience when I was there in 2019. So, and I love all of you. So, yeah, possibly.
All right. Thanks, Rhonda.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for your time and your preparation. Really appreciate it. And yeah,
Absolutely.
you back here next year. How's that?
All right. Take care. Bye.